It's the World Cup of World Cups. Episode 14, Italia 1990.
Friday, 8th of June 1990. Czechoslovakia begin voting in their first free election since 1946. It's Gary Shandling's show airs its final ever episode, and in Solihull, England, a 12-year-old boy puts a sewing machine needle through his finger and has to go to hospital in an ambulance. He turns down the offer of the sirens, something he regrets to this day. Meanwhile, in Milan, it's all kicking off. He's one of the few players to start a game in the home kit and end the game in the away kit.
Trying to work out whether it's just my natural propensity to get hit by nostalgia of all kinds.
There are some Germans in that video who've got what I would call charisma.
When you consider all the crazy things a lot of nations have done and not been banned, that seems incredibly heavy-handed.
I mean, who would have thought a bunch of Swiss bureaucrats would find themselves aligned with the National Socialist Party of Germany?
You need to go and do a robbery on some Argentinians. And if that robbery happens to be with violence, no one's going to complain.
It'd be like if Disney released a film over here called Samantha Fox.
David Batty, looking over his shoulder in a Newcastle shirt, photoshopped with the legs of a lingerie model.
Sorry, this sounds like a horrifying game of Cluedo.
Yeah. Salve et salve popularum mundi pecularum podcast. Res quattordecim Italia nonaginta novem. Jacobus Coccus est nomen moium, et ego semper e Paulo ferox, sum iunctus. Salve Paulo, quid agis?
Ordre est facere, nil sate nisi optimum.
Caecilius est in via. Yes, we're doing this in Latin today because we're back in Italy. We're also joined by a comedian and co-host of the excellent Worst Foot Forward podcast. He once hosted a comedy tour of the FIFA Museum in Zurich. It's lapsed Newcastle United fan Ben van der Velde.
Woo! Salve, brother Savage. Salve, brother Cook. That is true. I've hosted 3 tours of the FIFA Museum, and I tell you what they don't like: jokes about brown envelopes.
Were you paid in Swiss gold at the end? Is that
to steal a line from now retired brilliant comic Deborah Jane Appleby? Yes, I was, and I could see the bits where they'd filed off the eagles.
Ben, today we're talking about Italia 90. Where were you at when this World Cup was happening?
Where I was at was that I was a reasonably freshly minted 7-year-old and just sort of having my football awakening. I'm trying to think about how to describe it. I'm sure this is true with music, maybe with art, definitely your sense of self, and then a few years on, yourself of certain dangly bits of your body. There's the bit where you're like, I have no awareness of this, and then there's a bit of your life going, I'm aware that this is a thing that I don't fully understand, but like. And Italia 90 was my, football's a thing, and it's making me feel stuff, and I don't really quite understand what the World Cup is, but I somehow get that this is big.
Before we dive into Italia 90, the answer to the teaser that I said at the end of the last episode, which by all admission was the hardest and most tenuous one yet, of the 22 players to score their nation's last goal at a World Cup and then their country's next goal at a World Cup, 21 of them have happened in consecutive World Cups. We wanted to know who was the one who didn't do it in consecutive World Cups. There is no way anyone would be able to answer this question without doing the stupid amount of research that I've been doing. I'll tell you now, it was Samuel Eto'o for Cameroon. He scored their last goal in 2002 and he scored their first goal in 2010.
In attempting to divine the answer of that gentleman, I could feel my eyeballs rotating in opposite directions.
Don't blame me for that. I had nothing to do with it and no clue.
You are complicit.
I will assure you the teaser coming up at the end of this episode is a lot simpler. So, Italy beat the Soviet Union in the vote to host 1990, 11 votes to 5. Why do you think the Soviets missed out?
Because it was all about to fail catastrophically. Wouldn't it be brilliant if there was a World Cup and during it a glasnost happened? That'd be hilarious.
Is it because ultimately the Italian mafia has got more experience than the Soviet mafia, and at that time more money and able to pay off FIFA more effectively?
No, it was because the Soviets pulled out of the 1984 Olympics. That was said to be the thing that swung it in favour of Italy. 2 new stadiums are built, the Stadio dell'Alpi in Turin and the Stadio San Nicola in Bari, and most of the others are completely renovated. The construction process is riddled with bribery and corruption, and 24 workers are killed.
24? I mean, because obviously there's a lot of chat at the moment about how Qatar simply should not be happening, but 24 is a lot for the 90s, for Western Europe.
Well, it was the late 80s in Italy, so health and safety regulations probably not all that. Everyone's highlighting the issue in Qatar, and they're right to do it, but it's same old FIFA.
It almost feels like there's some bits of FIFA that kind of enjoy putting World Cups in problematic places.
I mean, they literally gave one to a fascist nation just before the war.
To be fair to FIFA...
Your paymasters, FIFA, yes.
My paymasters at FIFA. There was a lot of fascism going around in 1938. How were they to know they were backing the wrong horse? I understand that in 1938 fascism may have looked a good idea.
In qualifying, 116 teams are competing for 22 places. Quite a few stories in qualifying, aren't there, Paul?
One of the most enduring images of English football happens during the England-Sweden game, which by all accounts was a very dull game, apart from the bit where Terry Butcher got hit in the head and then got 2 very rudimentary stitches put into his head, had a bandage wrapped around it, and then pissed blood through that bandage. White bandage, covered in blood, white shirt, then covered in blood, and he just kept going to the point that his name in Sweden is apparently still Captain Blood.
He's one of the few players to start a game in the home kit and end the game in the away kit. The name of the Swedish player he clashed heads with was Johnny Ekström, who does go to this World Cup as well. His nickname is Johnny Bratom, which in Swedish means Johnny in a hurry, which I think would be an excellent name for some kind of mail order prophylactic system.
Yes, that's definitely something straight out of Carry On films, isn't it?
The USA are qualifying for the first time since 1950. They beat Trinidad and Tobago 1-0 in the decider. Paul Caligari's goal is known in America as the shot heard around the world by the not at all melodramatic Americans.
Around the world, as known as the what? All right, well, nice for you. The heard around the world.
And they managed to qualify America because Mexico are banned from this World Cup. Wow, they must have done something pretty heinous not to be able to play in the World Cup at all. That's right. They fielded overage players in the 1988 CONCACAF Under-20 tournament.
The monsters.
They got banned from the World Cup for that. When you consider all the crazy things a lot of nations have done and not been banned, that seems incredibly heavy-handed.
Yes.
They're not the only team that were banned from that World Cup, are they?
No, there was another fun one, which is Chile. Chile get banned. It comes down to the final game of the CONMEBOL group, and they have to beat Brazil. Brazil go 1-0 up, and rather than just go, oh, well, we could really try to get 2 goals back, what they decided to do is to engineer the loss of the game to the point that the Brazil fans get blamed. They have to either give a walkover to it or rearrange the game for like a neutral stadium where they can just have another go at it. A firecracker is thrown onto the pitch near the goalkeeper, Rojas, and he makes a big song and dance of it, landing about 2 meters behind him, pulls a razor blade out of his own glove, which he had for some reason. He prepared this ahead of time. He cuts himself, blood starts pouring out, and the match is abandoned. And then, like 2 days later, they take all of the press shots from it and the video footage and find out that he was nowhere near it. And Brazil are given the walkover win instead of Chile. He gets banned for life, which is rescinded when he's about 43. The Chileans are banned from this World Cup and the next one.
Frankly, you'd expect that shit from Mexico. It's bringing luchadora wrestling to the World Cup.
Yeah. My favourite bit of it is the fan that threw the firecracker was an attractive young woman. So, of course, she became a media celebrity and posed in Playboy. But not under her own name. She is known as, and it's such a ridiculous thing.
Surely she's known as Miss Firecracker.
Miss Firecracker would be a great name for it. She's literally called the firecracker thrower at the stadium.
Roberto Rojas, in later years, goes on to manage Sao Paulo.
Ooh,
in
spicy.
Brazil. By all intents and purposes, is quite a successful manager. In fact, he gets them to the Copa Libertadores for the first time in 10 years. The other story that I found about qualifying in this World Cup, it was after Egypt's decisive 1-0 win over Algeria, Algerian players and officials throw plant pots into the crowd.
Like terracotta plant pots.
Yeah, I think so. It might be those cheap plastic ones you get from petrol stations. I don't know. At the press conference, a broken bottle is thrown and blinds the Egyptian team doctor in one eye.
That's the one person you'd want to remain with both eyes.
That's the classic. This is the one thing we didn't want to happen.
Oh, the referee for that game, by the way, was Ali Ben Nasser.
Oh.
Now, I recognise that name. Is he a wrong referee?
He is indeed. He's the referee from the Hand of God.
In the Intercontinental Playoff for the final space at the World Cup.
The Intercontinental Playoff between Hacksaw Jim Duggan and the Ultimate Warrior.
Not everything is wrestling, Van der Velde. The Intercontinental Playoff is between Colombia of South America and the representatives of Oceania, who are, in this case...
New Zealand.
Is it going to be Israel for the 9th different qualification route that they've tried to make it through?
It is Israel. It's not necessarily the Israeli football team's fault that no one in Asia wants to play them. Why?
And to be fair, in 1958, no one in Europe wanted to play them. And in one of the 70s World Cup, no one in Africa wanted to play them. They are wandering around looking for someone to play with them. It's
and you think if any
a
nation,
team of wandering Jews.
Yeah. If any nation was going to wander the desert, it would be that one.
Infamously, before he went to his darkest solution, Hitler basically went, hey, maybe we should make this place a Jewish homeland. Maybe we should make that place a Jewish homeland.
And
it turns out
that is what FIFA was doing.
I mean, who would have thought a bunch of Swiss bureaucrats would find themselves aligned with the National Socialist Party of Germany?
But anyway, Colombia win, and they're back in the World Cup for the first time since 1962. Egypt are back for the first time since 1934, and Romania are in for the first time since 1970. We're going to say hello to Costa Rica, Ireland, and the United Arab Emirates. And we're going to say goodbye to the United Arab Emirates and also, sort of, to the USSR, Yugoslavia, and West Germany.
And also Czechoslovakia.
Yes, you're right, and Czechoslovakia. You're right, yeah. Notable absentees, we talked about Mexico. 1986 semi-finalist France were knocked out by Scotland.
In a hilarious way, because it's not like the France squad wasn't a good squad. They had still Jean-Pierre Papin. They were bringing through Cantona, but they just didn't score enough goals.
Also missing the AFCON winners Algeria and the Asian Cup holders Saudi Arabia. In the draw, Italy, Argentina, Brazil, West Germany and Belgium are seeded, along with England, who edge out Spain because the Italians want to put England and their horrible fans offshore in Cagliari, so they can keep an eye on them. The draw is one of the first proper showbiz draws. It is done by, and this is like name 3 famous Italians, Giorgio Moroder, Sofia Loren, and Luciano Pavarotti. Sophia Loren, to her credit, looks like she wants to be anywhere else during the draw, and is, at the end of it, bafflingly given a football.
She gets given a football and a short-term contract with Bari.
Brazil draw Scotland for the 3rd time. It's a shame, though, that they didn't also draw West Germany and Cameroon in the same group, because if they did, that group would have featured Miller, Muller, Moller, Voller, Curler, McAnally and Makanaki.
Is that like the World Cup version of Hugh, Barney McGrew?
Yes.
I don't know. I'm
Cuthbert
too
Dibble and
young
Grub.
to remember the rest of that. Thank you.
What do you remember about the mascot?
Now, I did remember his name, but that's gone. But I remember him being a red, white and green spindly man with a football for a head that now occurs to me looks very much like a footballing Jack Skellington from The Nightmare Before Christmas.
He's also quite similar to the Slender Man, the sort of folk horror thing.
Yeah, he's a colourful slender man. He reminded me of the Channel 4 logo when it used to transform. His name was, of course, Ciao, which is an Italian all-purpose word which means hello, goodbye, I love you, I hate you, and give me the fish of your brother Raoul. Giorgio Moroder, who I mentioned being part of the draw, he's there because he has composed the official song of Italia 90, which is called To Be Number One. And it is yet another football song written by somebody who clearly knows nothing about football. The lyrics state, reaching for the highest goal we can, which I'm pretty sure is basketball. We had to listen to that song.
They all seem to be dressed up in, like, you know, when you wrap yourself around in the curtains when you're a kid. It looks like that.
Scotland's World Cup song is sung by Fish from Marillion, as well as the lead singers from Runrig, Love and Money, and the Silencers, and is quite sort of overblown and dramatic. Germany's song, Sempre Roma, is a 6-minute long ballad.
It's a real struggle to get through that one. It's very strange watching people with excellent physical prowess have absolutely zero charisma.
There are some Germans in that video who've got what I would call charisma. Like, they're just, they look so physically awkward to be there.
The Irish released their first ever World Cup song, Put 'Em Under Pressure, which features samples of clips of Jack Charlton talking, and then the chorus is that ole, 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 ole chant.
Winning the ball, getting on with the play. We'll put them under pressure.
I was told by an Irish ex-girlfriend that was regularly played at sort of school discos and sort of church socials well into the early 2000s.
An English electro indie band writes a song about this World Cup. Sort of. That's right. It's Pop Will Eat Itself wrote a song about wanting a porn star to present the trophy at the end of the final. Cicciolina, the Hungarian-born porn star who became an Italian politician.
Interestingly, Cicciolina, the party that she was in one with another Italian porn star called Moana, who was so popular that when the Disney film Moana was released in Italy, they had to change the name because they were like, why are you naming about this old porn star?
Wow.
I feel like if Disney released a film over here called Samantha Fox, all about, you know, a fox who has adventures. Change it. And then let's talk about the World Cup songs in Italia 90 that both bring me to tears as a man in his 40s. World in Motion by New Order.
Love's got the world in motion, and I know what we can do.
The first England song to get to number one since 1970. Having listened to so many shit football records for this podcast, when I listened to World in Motion again, just to hear a song that was produced properly, it just filled my heart with joy. It's only sort of obliquely about football in a weird way. It's got the word world in the title.
I mean, the bit where it is definitely about football is John Bond's rap.
You got to hold and give, but do it at the right time.
They didn't know that John Barnes was definitely able to rap and he wasn't going to be definitely available. But they've written this little rap, and so they threw it out to everyone. And 6 or 7 people turned up from the England team to record the song and be in the video. And they let everyone have a go at the rap. And they've got the footage of Peter Beardsley trying it. And oh my, that is not a man with timing.
To hold and give, but you're at the right time. You can be slow or fast, but you must get to the line. They'll always hit you and hurt you, defend and attack. There's only one way to beat them, get around the back.
You too, O princes, in your cold room, look at the stars who tremble with love and of hope. But my mystery is closed in me, no one will know my name. No, no, I'll say it on your mouth when the light shines, and my kiss will dissolve the silence that makes you mine. Vanish, O night, set stars, I'll win at dawn, I will win, I will win.
Beautiful reading there from the book of Isaiah, verse 16. It's Nessun Dorma, isn't it?
Is it the words to Nessun Dorma? Yeah.
That's the words to Nessun Dorma in English. Nessun Dorma, recorded by Luciano Pavarotti, is the BBC World Cup theme for this World Cup and is not the theme for this podcast because every time I hear it, I burst into tears.
It really does hit you right where it hurts. It's
Right in the
like
feels.
I'm trying to work out with obviously the events of this footballing event are quite traumatic for an English football fan, and I'm trying to work out whether it's just my natural propensity to get hit by nostalgia of all kinds, or whether it's that plus the music plus the age I was plus the events. I can't tell what is more traumatic, watching that semi-final footage or the death of Bing Bong in Inside Out.
Take her to the moon for me. Okay?
Nessun Dorma has been covered by artists as varied as Michael Bolton, Manowar, Jeff Beck, the Los Angeles Gay Men's Choir, Ken Dodd, and Marie Osmond.
I really hope that the last three that you mentioned were all one thing. The Los Angeles Gay Men's Choir, Ken Dodd and Mary Osmond, together at last. They said it couldn't be done.
So we're using the ITV theme for this podcast, which I also remember with great fondness. But let's face it, it's no Nessun Dorma, is it? The other notable things that I remember about this World Cup was the advert that John Barnes did for Lucasade.
After 90 minutes of sheer hell, you're going to get thirsty.
Based on how Barnes was doing in that tournament, it was parodied as, after 60 minutes of sheer hell, you get taken off. Hey, have you ever played a board game? You have? Then you'll love my book, 101 Board Games to Play Before You Die. I look at the board games that we've loved, hated, and thrown across the room in a fit of rage. I'll tell you which classic games are not worth the time and emotional torment, and which games you should be playing instead, as well as giving you advice on how to make your dinner parties more tolerable and how to pimp your Scrabble. The perfect gift for your nerdy friend, it's available from 101boardgames.com. That's 101boardgames.com. To the opening game, Argentina versus Cameroon. Argentina, of course, the holders. So this should be a fairly straightforward win for the Argentinians.
One would think, wouldn't one? I do remember the rumour going around the school of there's this team from a country you as a 7-year-old probably haven't heard of. They have an incredible kit. They have a geriatric up front, and they're very, very violent. As well as being very smooth footballers, this Cameroonian team didn't come to about, did they?
Not taking prisoners. This was the dirtiest of World Cups, wasn't it? Something like 16 red cards across the entire tournament.
Which is double the previous record, which had been set in 1986 of 8. And that record does not get beaten until they expand the World Cup from 52 games to 64 games. In fact, a quarter of all the sendings off in this World Cup happen in the first and last game.
Wow.
That is mad.
Cameroon have 2 men sent off in this game, but not until Francois Omambiek scores the only goal with a header that just goes through Pompidou, the Argentinian goalkeeper.
Omambiek. Oh, he scored! Disaster for Pompidou!
That poor goalkeeper has an awful tournament, doesn't he? Because he lets in that one, ends up with a broken leg.
Omambiek, his cousin and nephew played for Cameroon, and his brother is Andre Carnabiek, who is sent off and goes on to be the first and only player to ever be suspended twice in the same World Cup.
Wow.
Oh.
It's very difficult to do. I'm fairly impressed.
5 minutes from time, Benjamin Messing is also sent off for trying to kick Claudio Canigia to the moon.
What my favourite thing about that clip, as I'm sure other people have seen before, it's the 2 previous attempts from the other members of the Cameroon who go, oh, missed him, and Massing is just like, thump, got him.
Canidia leads the charge. Referee allows him to go on. Terrible challenge by Messing.
In their next game, Romania lose to Cameroon, so it wasn't a fluke at all, and the Cameroonians scored 2 goals from Roger Miller.
Yeah. And what does he do? He goes into the corner. He has a little dance, which I didn't realise was the first goal celebration.
No,
What are you
I'm not having
talking
that.
about? It's the first sort of orchestrated one. Before that, everyone did a Shearer and just put their hand up and ran and went, yeah! But that was the first one.
Excuse me, don't you say did a Shearer as though Shearer's goal celebration wasn't just simple, direct beauty?
No one really knows how old Roger Miller is. We're fairly sure that at this World Cup he was 38, which would make him the World Cup's oldest goal scorer. Roger Miller had actually retired from football 2 years previously, but the president of Cameroon, Paul Biya, rang him up to get him to reconsider.
I love that he's got him out of retirement for one more job.
You need to go and do a robbery on some Argentinians. And if that robbery happens to be with violence, no one's going to complain.
He releases a single called Un enfant, c'est la vie, a child, that's life, and it's not good. Argentina bounced back by beating the Soviets 2-0, which essentially knocks the Soviets out of the tournament. Again, Maradona isn't punished for a handball. This time he's saving one from going in the goal, and he just gets away with it because basically he's William Webb Ellis now. And then Argentina draw with Romania, which means Romania are through as well. Romania's goal is scored by Gabi Balint, whose middle name is Pele, and who has a YouTube channel with 152 subscribers. And there's a video of him playing harmonica to a dog.
What is the dog's response to this?
He's clapping on the ones and the threes. That's the...
Yeah, they're not a big fan of syncopation of dogs.
Then the Soviet Union beat Cameroon 4-0, but despite that, the Soviets are out, and Cameroon are the first team to win a World Cup group with a negative goal difference.
Ooh,
Superb.
Fun.
Into Group A, which features Austria, Czechoslovakia, Italy, and the United States of America. After 75 minutes of their opening game against Austria, who comes on?
Toto Schillaci.
Their third or fourth choice striker at this World Cup. They give him a go because it's 0-0, but he scores within 3 minutes to give Italy the win. Suddenly, a hero is born.
And Schillaci, I think the first, spoiler, Golden Boot winner, he played 4 divisions. He started out in Serie C2. He wasn't a big league scorer. He was known for being right place, right time. And Italia 90 is the perfect right place, right time for Schillaci.
2 things I will say about him is, one, he can larrup a ball. There's a couple of one where he hits the bar where he can really hammer it. And also the equivalent, because there's an England footballer that turns up that I basically forgot about and was delighted to be reacquainted with. I think I'm right in saying that Toto Schillaci's success is a bit like if Steve Bull had ended up getting the Golden Boot.
Yeah. I think we'd all enjoy that. And Steve Bull, sadly, never played in the Premier League, so can't be the...
No, he only made one top-flight appearance, and it was as a substitute for West Brom.
Oh. That is mad.
The Czechs thump the US 5-1, but Eric Wijnaldum is the first American to be sent off at a World Cup, and in 2018, his house burned down in a California wildfire. Then Italy beat the US 1-0 again as they Arsenal their way to glory. Their goal is scored by Giuseppe Giannini, nicknamed Il Principe, the Prince. They also have a penalty in this game, which is taken by Gianluca Vialli, but he hits the post.
This is big hair Gianluca Vialli, isn't it?
Yes, that's right.
My image of Vialli is this sort of bullet-headed man, but to see him with basically a fro is really bizarre.
Yeah, he was tipped to be the breakout star of Italia 90, but it never happened. He stopped playing for Italy in 1992 because he fell out with Sarci. I don't know if you know this about Vialli. His dad was a millionaire. He grew up in a mansion.
Oh, I thought you were just going to be like, his dad was a millionaire because the lira was so pointlessly overvalued. It got £40.
Technically, everyone in Italy at that time was a millionaire. Like
a proper one. A proper millionaire.
So probably his dad was a billionaire, if we're talking lira.
Yeah.
But then a cricket score for the Italians because they beat the Czechs 2-0. That's right, a goal from Schillaci, who is now starting the games, and then Il Divine Cadino, Roberto Baggio, shows up.
Oh, the Divine Ponytail, of course.
And it's kind of a mazy dribble and shot, and John Motson loses his beans over it.
Giannini, Baggio, and still Baggio. And he's taking them all on. That's a fantastic goal. That's the goal they've all been waiting for.
I don't think it's that great a goal. It regularly pops up in greatest World Cup goals, and I'm not having it.
Controversy here in the pod from Van der Velde. Austria beat the US 2-1, but it's not enough, and they are both out. The second Austrian goal is scored by Rodax, who sounds like a space villain. Also in the Austrian squad was Kurt Russ, who is so close to being Kurt Russell. Heimo Pfeifenberger, which is just a brilliant name. There's Michael Consul, the sub-goalkeeper, who goes on to come 7th on Austrian Strictly in 2007.
And honestly, the Austrian Strictly is the strictest of Strictlys.
And Tony Polster, the Austrian record goal scorer, he scored 44 in 95 for Austria. He was known as Tony Doppelpack because he'd often score twice, and that's what someone who scores twice is called in Austria, a Doppelpack.
Oh,
The Americans are out. Their squad features Brian Bliss.
who's like the drugged up version of Brian Blessed? Just
Yeah.
No, come on. Brian Bliss is absolutely a porn star.
or an early 90s DJ. He's at the house game.
Got some crazy North American team names if you want to hear them. Steve Tritcher plays for the Tampa Bay Rowdies. Jimmy Banks plays for the Milwaukee Wave. It's on a lake, isn't it?
I mean, that's going to require quite a lot of external force if you're going to get a lake moving with a wave.
And of course, its name means Milwaukee, which means the good land. Paul Crumper, who plays for Real Santa Barbara.
Real means royal. You can't be an American team and have Real in your name.
Real Santa Barbara only existed for 2 years. Maybe they had some kind of revolution there. And there's Neil Cavone, who plays for Wake Forest Demon Deacons.
That's quite a hard one to chant.
It sounds mad, but Jack Harrison, who plays for Leeds United, also played for them in 2015. Group C features the Copa champions Brazil, the CONCACAF champions Costa Rica, Scotland and Sweden. We have nothing to fear from Costa Rica, said Andy Roxburgh, in a way that will in no way come back to haunt him.
Oh, Andy.
Don't you learn anything from Ali McLeod?
Why would you do that? It's like, we have nothing to fear from putting our hand in a mousetrap.
I didn't realise that Costa Rica were new in 1990. I have them in my head as like such a classic World Cup team. Entertaining, fun strip, great players, go out in the second round to Argentina kind of team.
No, this was their debut. And the goal they score against Scotland is brilliant. Jara's back heel, Blazing Kayasu, who scores the only goal.
Jara's there, and Kayaso! And Kayaso has scored! Costa Rica have taken the lead!
Their goalkeeper was called Conejo, which means rabbit, but also means vagina. Conejo is the equivalent of pussy in Spanish, so they had a goalkeeper called Pussy, essentially.
To find that out, Paul had to watch a lot of Watership Down in Spanish. Brazil are boring but effective and have a striker called Muller, so basically they're Germany now. Sweden lose all their games 2-1. That's the first time that ever happens, which means all Scotland need to go through, having beaten Sweden, all they need is a draw against Brazil. That's all they need. And to be fair to them, for 81 minutes, they hold out.
And to be fair,
The
goal that Brazil score looks like it shouldn't go in. It sort of squirms past the keeper, and there's somebody there who you just go, well, he's going to bury that in the side netting. The angle is too tight, and then it just goes in, and you go, oh, and then that's it. Scotland are going home.
It's the sort of goal you'd expect St Mirren to be happy with scoring. It's not. It's not exactly samba football.
So Scotland were 9 minutes away from qualifying for the second round in this World Cup. It's one of the closest they ever got.
One of the Scotland squad was Paul McStay, and his cousin is also a professional footballer, and he was the one that Duncan Ferguson headbutted to get sent to jail for assaulting on the pitch.
That's true. Also in the Scotland squad, Alex McLeish, playing in his third World Cup, has a cameo role in the movie Stan and Ollie. He's mates with the director John Baird. Their goalkeeper, Andy Gorham, he's only the sub-goalkeeper in this World Cup. He's the only man to play internationally for Scotland in both football and cricket. In 2 matches, he took 2 wickets at 39 and had a batting average of 16.
That's not bad at all.
Bad.
Are we going to say the sad but funny thing about Andy Gorham?
Please do.
So Andy Gorham was diagnosed, I believe, with either schizophrenia or multiple personality disorder. And when he was playing, I think, for Rangers, the opposition fans used to go near him and chant, "There's only 2 Andy Gorhams."
Gallows humour from the football supporters, as usual. Also in the squad, Robert Fleck, who has
Norwich City.
Yeah. He plays a pretty good game against Sweden. His nephew John plays for Scotland now, John Fleck of Sheffield United. Brian Gunn, the other sub-goalkeeper, in 2002 became the Sheriff of Norwich. His son Angus has played for the England under-21s.
Ooh, controversial.
And Ali McCoist is in the squad. Has everyone forgotten that he plays a lead role in a Hollywood movie?
Excuse me?
Alan McCoist had a sketch show, I remember that.
Did he?
Yeah.
Due to a booking error after he saw The Real McCoy on BBC Two and thought, I better get down to Television Centre.
He's in the movie A Shot at Glory, which also stars Robert Duvall, Michael Keaton, and Brian Cox. It's about a Scottish footballer. In the movie, he has to wear a Celtic shirt at one point. So when they filmed it, he wore a Rangers shirt underneath, so it didn't touch his skin. A Shot at Glory has an IMDb rating of 6.2.
This is our shot at glory, lads. All right? All right?
A Shot at Glory.
Sweden are also out. They have in their squad Jesper Parnevik's brother-in-law, Stefan Pettersson, and Glenn Hussein, their captain, a Liverpool player. In 2001, he attacked a man who tried to grope him in the men's room at Frankfurt Airport. In 2007, he spoke at Stockholm Pride, denouncing homophobia, and he said, "I'm not proud that I took a swing at him, but I am proud that I have integrity and that I reacted." In 2011, his son Anton, playing for Swedish Division 2 side Utsiktens, came out.
Yeah, he's Europe's only openly gay footballer for a bit.
Anton went on to win Swedish Strictly in 2012, and 2 years later, Glenn was eliminated third from the same show.
He has a reality TV show that was the Swedish equivalent of the Osbournes.
The Husseins.
The Husseins, yeah, following his family around.
That man has so much odd backstory.
Yeah.
Group D. Colombia, the UAE, West Germany, and Yugoslavia. Everyone beats the UAE, which means they all qualify. West Germany scored 10 goals in 3 games because there's been some kind of body swap with Brazil. They score 4 more goals than any other team in the group stage. And 3 of their goals against Yugoslavia are proper brilliant. Lothar Matthäus replicates Bobby Charlton's goal against Mexico.
Because that was the first game, and they were like, wow, the Germans might be the fun entertainers of this World Cup. They just did all of the entertaining bits in the first group bits.
If you're confident enough, then that is the way to do it. Just go, right, we're going to have fun in the group stages, and then when it gets to knockout football, right, fun's over, lads, let's treat this seriously.
Carlos Valderrama, who scores against UAE, looks like Lenny the Lion. There's a 22-foot bronze statue of him in Santa Marta, Colombia.
And it's all afro.
It looks like a cross between David Lee Roth and the big clay head of Lionel Richie that gets made in the Hello video.
Mr. Reynolds, excuse me, but there's something going on in the sculpture class.
Against the UAE, Yugoslavia scored the 2 fastest goals of the tournament after 4 and 7 minutes. Only 2 of the goals are scored in the first 10 minutes of any game in this World Cup.
It's a real test on the attention span, this World Cup, isn't it?
Yeah. It's Scalacci against the Czechs and Lineker versus Ireland. The only 4 goals scored in the first 10 minutes of games at this World Cup. Freddie Rincon scores a late equaliser against West Germany. In 2007, he'd be investigated for collaborating with a cartel boss and money laundering. He died in April 2022 when the car he was driving collided with a bus. The Colombia-West Germany game was refereed by Northern Ireland's Alan Snoddy. Snoddy, the referee with the red and yellow cards. Group E, Belgium, South Korea, Spain and Uruguay. Everyone beats South Korea, so they all qualify. Although it takes a last-minute Daniel Fonseca goal to put Uruguay through. He is nicknamed El Castor.
The oil.
No.
I'm thinking of Castrol GTX.
Yes. El Castor is the beaver on account of his massive teeth. Mark de Griezer scores against South Korea by kicking the ball as high as he possibly can, and somehow it lands in. Then Michel de Wolf scores a thunder bastard. Lee Kleisters scores against Uruguay. He is the father of
Kim
Kleisters.
Yes, exactly right. And Enzo Schifo scores from 35 yards as they win 3-1. Belgium are having a bit of a who can score the best goal competition.
Enzo Schifo is very much a Bond villain name.
Do you expect me to talk? No, I expect you to go out in the second round. Michel scores a hat-trick for Spain, becoming the first player with the same name as a Beatles song to do so at the World Cup.
Michelle, my belle.
Polythene Pam only got an assist.
In the same game, Hwangbo Kwan scores with a free kick that was clocked at 114 kilometres per hour, 70 miles an hour, so he won't have to go on a speed awareness course. Their squad features Lee Tai-ho, who's known as the Korean Gerd Muller, and he was blind in one eye.
but
Wow.
not by an Algerian during the qualifiers.
No. Group F. This is where the action is. Egypt, England, Ireland, and the European champions, the Netherlands.
Let's get right to it, lads. This group's results can best be described as attritional.
Every game was a draw except for England's 1-0 win over Egypt.
But having said that, from the highlights I've watched, the England-Netherlands game, it's a banger. It is end-to-end stuff. There's brilliant players playing brilliantly. The ball goes in the net twice. I don't know why the second goal wasn't allowed.
Is that the Stuart Pearce one?
Yeah, it's a free kick that goes in the goal, and they go, nah, it's not a goal, though, because, yeah,
that was the game that everyone thought England were going to get absolutely whooped in because Holland had been amazing, won the Euros, and England had played so badly against Ireland. One Italian paper, they ran the headline, "No football, please, we're British."
Well, it is the height. This I know we've spoken about, and we'll continue to speak about. This is probably the poorest quality World Cup, or famous for it. There's a brilliant book that I hugely recommend by the writer Jonathan Wilson called "Inverting the Pyramid," and it's basically a history of football tactics. And this is the era when football becomes not cynical in like the fun Italian 60s calcio way, but in how grey and boring and brutalist can we make this game?
And England and Ireland are two of the biggest culprits for this.
Oh, awful. Disgusting what we do.
How many non-Irish born players are there in the 22-man Ireland squad?
17.
I'll go 15 because you made a noise.
Yeah, you're both wrong. It's 16.
Oh!
The only Irish-born players are Pat Bonner, Niall Quinn, Frank Stapleton, Steve Staunton, Kevin Moran and Ronnie Whelan. In the Ireland game, Gary Lineker scores early on, and then what does he do?
He shits himself on the pitch.
He does, yes. Something which he talks about a bit too much these days.
It's one of those ones where, Gary, you don't have to own it to the extent like you did other things. You had a golden boot.
On the day we're recording this podcast, he tweeted about it today.
It is, as far as I'm aware, the most infamous shitting yourself in public event of the 20th century.
It is for the Northern Hemisphere. One of the Australian Prime Ministers shat himself in a McDonald's, and that was a thing that followed him round his career.
Scott Morrison at McDonald's in Engadine.
Sorry, this sounds like a horrifying game of Cluedo.
Yeah. So England are 1-0 up. No one wants to mark Gary Lineker because he smells. And then Welsh-born Kevin Sheedy gets the equaliser with Ireland's first World Cup goal after Pat Bonner hoofs it up the field. Steve McMahon, who'd only been on as a sub 5 minutes before, gives the ball away and Sheedy scores.
I know it's the wrong World Cup, but you've got to give him his full name, which is Pat Bonner. The only Irishman to have the O at the start of his name rather than before his surname.
I'm just glad we're not giving him his actual name that he wants to go by.
Oh, yes.
Yeah.
I was about to say it, and then I realised it's just strange shortening of Patrick that I have never encountered outside of that one guy, right?
Yeah. I'd hate to think what he'd be called if his name was Nigel.
That's James Cook there, tightrope walking across razor wire.
I've said nothing. It's all in your head. Yeah, so the first 4 games in the group are all draws. Egypt are playing much better than anyone thought. They get a draw against the Netherlands. So going into the last games, it's really wide open and anything can happen. Luckily, Mark Wright, who looks exactly like Dr. Seuss's The Cat in the Hat, scores a header, which means England beat Egypt. In the Ireland-Netherlands game, Ruud Gullit scores after 11 minutes. His real name is Rudy Dill. His father came to Amsterdam from Suriname with Frank Rijkaard's dad.
Oh, amazing.
Oh, wow.
He once famously, of course, tried to bring sexy football to Newcastle. How did that go, Ben?
Poorly. I remember deliberately coming back from staying at a friend's house to watch the Newcastle-Sunderland derby in the pissing rain, where he left Alan Shearer on the bench. We lost, and then he blamed Shearer for being on the bench. And unsurprisingly, he was sacked in the morning.
There was a thing when Ruud Gullit said, we're going to start playing sexy football. And one of the papers to illustrate this had David Batty looking over his shoulder in a Newcastle shirt, photoshopped with the legs of a lingerie model. And it is one of the most horrifying images possible for you to comprehend. It's just like, oh my days.
Ruud Gullit had hits in Holland with Not the Dancing Kind in 1984. And a number 3 hit with an anti-apartheid song called South Africa.
South African, down press salmon. You better go where you're coming from.
In 1988, and when he won the Ballon d'Or in 1987, he dedicated it to Nelson Mandela. Niall Quinn equalises after a big hoof up the field from Pat Bonner and a mistake from Hans van Brooklyn. Do you see a recurring theme here? Niall Quinn's Disco Pants, a song about him dancing in a nightclub in just some cut-off jeans during a pre-season tour of Italy in 1992, got to number 56 in the UK charts in 1999.
So 7 years later, you're supposed to remember that Niall Quinn...
You can't just toss off a song like Niall Quinn's Disco Pants in 5 minutes, Paul. It takes time. It was the good vibrations of its era. No, do it again. We've got to get it perfect. That game takes place in Palermo, Sicily at the Stadio La Favorita. In 1970 there, during a concert, Arthur Brown of The Crazy World of Arthur Brown performed a striptease on stage and was arrested.
I am the god of hellfire!
He was released on the premise that he would never return to Sicily again.
And stay out of Sicily. Yeah.
This meant that Ireland and the Netherlands had identical records and had qualified in second and third place. So it's time to...
draw some lots.
That's right. Yeah. They bring out the blindfolded Italian boy for one last go.
Kids, I got one last job for you. I'm 47 now.
And the lots were drawn, which meant Ireland get a second round game against Romania, whereas the Netherlands would have to play West Germany in a rematch of the 1974 final. Coming up in part 2.
England's run to the semi-finals is ugly and clunky as shit.
It's the bit where he doesn't notice it's there and it's just there in his throw.
I can't get over how much Mick McCarthy looks like a Muppet newsreader.
When you see what Germany do to him, you can see why he wants to be separated from the continent.
Are we the baddies? Yeah, in this game, we are the baddies.
You know, like therapists will say that most of what they do is unravelling childhood trauma. And I think for a good percentage of the male population of England, this is like one of the defining ones.
To hold and give, but at the right time. You can be slow or fast, but you must get to the line. They'll always hit you and hurt you. Defend and attack. There's only one way to beat them. Get around the back. Catch me if you can, 'cause I'm the England man. And what you're looking at is the master plan. We ain't no hooligan. This ain't a football song. 3 lions on my chest. I know we can.